Hello and welcome to today's Zoom session. This is our first one for the month of July, and we're doing it on transition. You'll see me look around. I have a timer set, I have my water here, and I have some notes on my whiteboard. So throughout the video and the upcoming ones, you'll see me look around at different things. I'm not distracted. I'm just reading notes, and I might even look down to take a few notes myself. Anyway, let's get started. For those of you who may not know who I am, my name is Heather Silva, and this is actually our very first month in our church trauma restoration membership. And I'm super excited to do this. This is something that's been oh wow, this has been in the works for a long, long time, and we're finally starting. And I know all about transition. I have moved several times. I've been divorced 3 times. I have been kicked out of a church. I've been what I refer to as silently excommunicated from another church. I've left other churches, you name it. So I have been, let's see, I've lost my grandparents have both passed away. My dad suddenly passed away almost 3 years ago. That throws you into transition. I actually moved back here to be with him. I've been through a lot of transition in my life. So I would love to share some things with you that I've learned. I learned a lot the hard way, which is a little bit of my learning style. I've gotten a little wiser over the years, and I've been through it enough times now that when transition does happen for me, I can easily incorporate some healthy transitional tools to get me to my destination, so to speak, much easier than in the past. So today, I don't want to spend too much more time on that. I want to respect your time because it's valuable. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me in this. And I'm just super excited about what's to come for all of us, and building relationship and healing and growing together and moving through transition together in a healthy way. There's going to be ups and downs. Transition is like this, whether it's a happy beginning transition, we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, or if it was a traumatic event that sort of pushed you into transition. We can still do that, have fun, we can heal. I call that transformational transition, and that to me is the best way, because we're continuing, we are growing day by day, right? We're becoming more of who we were created to be every day. We are learning, we're growing wisdom, we're healing, and that is a form of transition. So just living life is actually a form of transition. Now, some people do get stuck in different areas and different parts of life, and that can keep us in the same place, sort of just spinning in circles until we discover strategies and tools to help us come out of that place of being stuck. And one thing that coaches do very well, that is a big part of our education, our training, is taking people from a stuck position and helping them to move forward, propelling them into life, into the life that they were meant to live. Oftentimes, we all have blind spots, we all have blocks, and that can happen from a traumatic experience, just because we when we process trauma, the trauma stays within our body, it stays within our soul. Your soul is your mind, will, and your emotions, and it also affects your spirit, especially if it's been spiritual trauma, religious trauma, spiritual abuse, church trauma. It's pretty much all the same thing. And so then, we can create, because it's just a self-protection mechanism, we create these blocks, these areas where we can disassociate from, because we want to feel better. This can also be a time where people turn to self-medication because they just want to feel better. So drugs, alcohol, whether they're prescription or illegal, can make you feel better. It gives that appearance of feeling better, when in reality you're just checking out and you're just prolonging. That's sort of like a false sense of security. So that is a lot of times why people turn to substances, and then it just perpetuates into this cycle. And really, when that happens, you're not really going anywhere. You're just spinning in circles. A biblical reference to that would be coming out of Egypt, and what was actually like a 40-day journey ended up a 40-year journey, right? People were groveling and complaining, and poor me. It was just the perfect picture of the victim mentality. And horrible things happen to people, and horrible things. I've been through some very horrible things, and I am not discounting that by any means. Abuse in any form is horrible. We've been through tragedies. I'm not minimizing that by any means at all. What can happen, however, when we don't seek help for those things, when we continue in that process as a victim, it can become sort of an identity for people, and you become stuck. And this actually had happened to me, and it was part of after a divorce, a very horrible divorce process, and I was in a church, and so they kind of label you, right? They keep you in that, oh, how are you going? So what happens is the people that I was surrounding myself with in that entity only saw me as that person going through a divorce. Poor Heather, she's going through something horrible. And so it kind of held me in their eyes, and in the whole, like, what I was allowed to do, what I wasn't allowed to do, how people viewed me. I began to take that on myself and keeping myself in that place. And when that happens, you're carrying something from the past with you, and so you're not able to actually move forward from that. And then when you see things are not happening the way that we feel they should be happening, I'm not moving forward, I know I'm stuck, but I can't see what is holding me back, because I'm just in the midst of that trauma drama. Or the tornado that's swirling, right? You're in that place of confusion and you want to get out, but there's something that is preventing you from seeing the truth of what is going on. And also, there's power in your, in your community, so to speak. If you're in a church community and you're at that point in time, I was at every meeting, whenever the doors were open, and I was there and I was with these people, doing life with them basically. So for me, I wasn't able to see it. And when I would seek that counsel, they were counseling from the place of they knew me, and that's where I was at. And so I didn't see it, they didn't see it. And so then this victim mentality, this whole thing just sort of set in for me. And then when I started seeing my coach, very quickly that was identified just in my first set of homework to do in my first session. That was one of the things. It's like the light came on, the blinders came off. It was this aha moment. And so, okay, now let's move forward. Let's actually stop moving in circles, stop going around the mountain the same time, and let's actually begin the transition process. So this was a number of years later. So I was just stuck. And there were some areas that I did have some growth in and I did have some healing in, but I was still looking through the lens of that part of victimization for me, that part of emotional mental abuse, the trauma, if that makes sense. I'm going to just continue to go in this session. If you have any questions at all, you can type them in the chat. You can also, I'm recording all of our sessions together and I'll upload that into the group, and you can ask your questions below, or you can just comment within the group, and I would be more than happy to answer them, and we may even coach on that in the next session. So that's just a little side note. Okay, so let's move on. Transition. What is transition? I uploaded a bonus video for you, just a brief, I think it was maybe like a 20-minute video that I did a couple weeks ago on transition, talk a little bit about what transition is. So I encourage you to go and watch that or listen to it. But again, transition is the process of moving from one place to another, whether that's like a physical thing. It could even be like an emotional transition, right? We're retraining our brain. We're moving from, let's just use like the victim, like what happened to us. I don't even really like the word victim. I wish there was something, it has such a negative connotation. But the reality is we've all been a victim of abuse, at least those of us in this group, not all, but we've all had something happen to us. And so anyway, moving from one emotional place to another, physical, we're moving from one area to another is transition. And the next question is well, how does transition start? 90-some% of the time, transition comes in a way that we're not expecting it. It comes from a traumatic experience, and that propels us into a transitional period. What can happen is when you have, let's say, someone you love dies, goes to prison, your church, you discover a leader, you know, that you are being abused. That's trauma. That's a traumatic thing. There's sexual abuse, something traumatic, the loss of a job, the loss of a home. That is all traumatic events. Let's say a major car accident. Those are traumatic events. And when that happens, you lose a job or you lose a loved one, then you're put in this position of learning how to move forward without that. If you're in a major accident and there's a long healing process, or let's just say the prognosis is not getting much better, then the transition comes from that and learning how to move forward and live with the disability or what have you, right? And then processing. Fear sets in. You know, getting in another vehicle can triggers set in. And probably in next month or so, we'll talk all about like triggers and emotions and things like that connected to trauma. So trauma is very much connected to transition, because transition actually, whenever there's a traumatic event, or whenever your body processes from trauma and you realize it, that is not good for you, and you choose to get out of the situation, that begins a transitional phase too. The other way, 10% of the time, is when you decide that you want to move, you want to change jobs, you want a new life, you want to begin to grow intellectually, or you want to start healing some old wounds. You make the choice to transform on your own. So that comes from like a healthy place. So that is a little bit about transition. In this group is all about healing church trauma. And so we actually, some of us could still be going to church, and others of us are no longer tied to the church building, so to speak, the entity of the church, because really we are the church. You and I, we are the church. So how does stress fit in to the trauma transition? And even if it's a happy transition, if you decide to say, let's move out of the state, so to speak, a lot of times our subconscious doesn't like change. And the older people get, the longer they've stayed in their same life, the harder it is to transition without some kind of stress attached to it. Now, my belief, as I've been a natural health practitioner for a number of years and taking a holistic approach, means that our body, holistically speaking, our soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions, and our body and our spirit, right? That is what makes a person. And everything is interconnected. So if you cut your finger, let's say you cut your finger on a fence and it hurts really bad, and your body, your physical body, will begin to heal, right? You'll automatically pull away, and then the healing process starts in your physical body. Now, how does that affect your mind, will, and emotions? So your mind, right, your body goes into, ouch, that hurt, I want to stay away from that again to protect myself from that pain. So when you come up to a fence with a sharp post or metal, whatever it was, you're going to hesitate. You don't want to repeat that, right? So you can have this sort of like fear type. You can start sweating. You can just hesitate. And that is sort of like a mind-body response. Your mind, your subconscious knows that that could be danger there. Whereas before that happened, you might just go up and lean on the fence post or whatever it is. Does that make sense? Spiritually speaking, maybe, you're in pain. This is just sort of like a very generalized. I don't honestly think that your spirit could be too much. But what if you are skimming through pages of your meditation book, your Bible, whatever it is, and your finger is hurting you? So, okay, I'm just not going to do that until my finger hurts. Well, that's affecting your spirit, right? What about you're in pain, and so meditating, praying, however you practice spiritually is impacted because you're focused on the pain, if that makes sense. So that is just an example of how trauma and transition, and it creates stress in your body as well. That's just a very generic example. Also, grief is attached to transition a lot of times. and to trauma as well as stress. So this is a very complex thing, I guess. A better word would be great. Anybody can think of a better word than thing, let me know. Comment below, let me know. Ay, ay, ay. So grief can happen. We think a lot of times that trauma has to be this major horrible thing. Yes, that is a traumatic event. But trauma is simply, we're all different. We're all created different. Some people, you might have heard the term highly sensitive person. Some people are far more sensitive than others, and that is good, not bad. It is just how people are created, okay? So a traumatic experience, trauma is, your body can process a negative comment from someone that is very hurtful to you. You can process that as trauma. Years of that can be called trauma. There's CPTSD out there. There's PTSD. PTSD stems more from traumatic events. CPTSD is sort of that long-term, often associated with childhood trauma, which again, what affects one child one way affects another child in a completely different way, because we're all very unique individuals. So what could be trauma for me may not necessarily be trauma for you. Again, we are all individuals. So however your body, if your body, your mind is processing something that is happening to you, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, as trauma, then that is okay. That is okay. So oftentimes people say, well, I wasn't actually hit or sexually abused. So it's not really, is it really abuse? We can diminish that. And I believe, because I've been through it, that mental, emotional, spiritual abuse is far more damaging than to get hit by somebody, right? If somebody hit us, we're probably not going to hang out with that person or continue in relationship with that person. But somebody can say something mean, they discount it, right? It continues and it continues and continues, becomes a cycle. It starts to affect you. That is abuse. That is trauma. It's creating trauma. So that's just a brief note sort of on what trauma, and we, as we continue on in our membership, we'll talk more about that. So let's go back to stress and grief. Whenever there is a loss of something, we go into a grief response. There are cycles that you go through in grief. If you're feeling angry a lot, then a lot of times anger is unresolved grief. There's fear in that too. We won't go too deep into grief in this session because we're focusing on transition. But grief is very much tied to it. So that opens up a whole other basket of emotions and things to deal with. So in the transitional process, we could be dealing with, even if it is a happy transition. Let's, we decide to leave the state. Well, guess what? The loss is maybe our neighbors. Maybe we're moving away from family, so we're losing that close connection. So there will be somewhat of a grief response. Now, of course, if a loved one dies, or if you're coming out of an abusive situation and you're put in that transition, of course the grief response is going to be much deeper than that. But today we're just talking about how it connects and how it interacts with the transitional process. Stress. There is eustress, and then there is bad stress. So eustress is actually good stress. Again, if you decide to go skydiving, that's something that you want to do. And your body, you're going to have that adrenaline rush, right? Adrenaline junkies choose to do those crazy things because they love that adrenaline rush. So that would be considered good stress. If you're moving out of the state and you're excited about that, that would be good stress, good transition, good stress. It's still going to affect your body. Bad stress is, trauma. If you're in just negative situations, your transition was sort of an unwanted, unexpected transition, can be very stressful. And so you have hormones, your stress hormones are releasing, and other vitamins and minerals are being depleted in your body. And so the stress response, again, it's going to affect your thoughts, it's going to affect your physical body as well, and it's also going to affect your spiritual practices. And again, this is just a broad touch on that, and we'll focus on that in another month or two. So they are all sort of interconnected. And so for those of you who have been through transition, I'm hoping that this sort of makes sense when you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was crazy, or I was just exhausted, or my body, like I was getting these headaches. I mean, there's so many different manifestations of stress and just grief in the transition. It's like, well, this is an exciting thing. What is happening to me? And so then we can change our mind. We can oftentimes go back to the very thing that, the negative thing that we wanted to move away from, because sometimes it just becomes so overwhelming and we start to romanticize it. Well, that wasn't so bad. And excuse me. And so we can just go back to that. And that happens walking backwards. That's, more than just standing still. So those are some of the ways that transition that can affect mind, body, spirit, the different things that come up. You have a stress response, there's grief on some level, and then you also, most of the time, 90% of the time, transition begins from something negative. And so then you have all of the trauma stuff that you're dealing with, signs, symptoms, and all of that. So that brings me to my next point, which is, it is so important to have support when you're going through transition, even if it's a positive transition. We need the support to make it through, because something that will keep us from going back, romanticizing, right? Somebody to say, but remember this and that, or even somebody just to bounce things off of. If you're moving, or if it's something happy, hey, having that support, hey, what about this? I'm feeling this. And whether it's a coach or a close friend, I personally recommend a coach, because oftentimes your friends, they want to keep you in the place that where they love you at, right? If that makes sense. And they have your best interest at heart, but they also want to keep the you that they love intact, in place. So that's why I recommend hiring a good coach. It will help the process. It'll speed things up. It will turn the transition into a transformational transition where when you come out the other side, it's going to be amazing, right? Rather than, oh my gosh, I made it out alive. So that's what we're doing in this group. So congratulations, you came to the right place. You're going to get some amazing support here. Next one, we have spent so much time on transition already. I need to sort of speed it up a bit. What I would like for us to do this month, one thing, we're going to do several because I want to help you to apply healing and transformational transition to your individual needs, right? The way that we all learn differently, we all process differently, we all respond differently. We all have that sweet spot that's going to help us. So we're going to put together sort of a personal protocol to help us transition in as healthy of a way and get as much healing through this the transition time that when we come out, we are like living an amazing life. We've had some healing. We have created a toolbox. So if and when, well, not even if, because there's going to be another transition at some point in time. So when our next transition comes about, we have tools in our toolbox that we can pull out that can help us, right? We will have the support. We can say, all right, last time I didn't do this so well, so this time I'm going to use this tool. Or this tool worked amazing for me, I'm going to implement this one. So after the video, within the next day or two, I'm going to post a little homework for you, sort of a worksheet. And I may or may not attach it to a video. We'll see how that goes. But that will give you something to keep notes on. That's going to be a tool for you. What I would like for you to do is to get some quiet time and think about the last transition or a transition that you went through. If we are applying this, which most of us are, think about a transition into church or out of church. Let's just take a transition into church as an example. How do you remember responding? Body, soul, and spirit. Were you nervous? Did you were you excited? Did you notice like your body felt really good? Or maybe you had this sort of like, you were just happy. You felt connected. I think most of us can say spiritually, there was probably something really good there. But really take time and think about it, because that was a transition. It was something most likely that you wanted to do. Oh, it's a new church. I like it. I'm going to continue to come here. I was nervous. I was really nervous going in. So maybe just take some time and write it out. Your emotions, just journal a little bit about it. I do better speaking. So for those of you that speak, you can do like a little recorder and record yourself. And you can have it transcribed if you want in writing. If you're interested in that, let me know and I can point you in the right direction for that. That's oftentimes what I do. That's just how I'm wired. So write down, like, think about the highs, think about the lows of that. Which areas were stressful and how did that stress affect you? And I'm asking you to do this because this is going to tell you a number of things. It's going to tell you what you can expect from a response in your body. and what tools will help you to transition in a good way. So I'm not going to ask you to do anything that is just sort of fluff, what I call it. I like to keep things very simple, very very helpful. And if you find that you're having a difficult time doing that, then please let me know, and we'll talk about that. We'll sort of brainstorm on what may work for you. I'd also like for you to take a time that was a traumatic or a not so good transition and sort of think about the same things. And in healing and in keeping transformational transition positive, healthy, happy, thrilling, taking time and loving yourself and having that support to help keep you clear is so important. So I believe that healing includes all of your senses. So surround yourself with scents that you love. I'm a huge fan of essential oils. I have a history of migraines, and so odors and scents, they can do amazing things for me or horrible things for me. So I use very good essential oils, and that is very healing and very soothing for me. Sound. A lot of people that have come from trauma handle certain sounds in a negative way. There are certain noises that just trigger me. It agitates me, it irritates me. And so having sounds, being surrounded, not all the time, because I also really, really love the quiet. And that is also a sound and can be sound therapy. So finding some sort of soothing, healing music, even if it's just like running water, finding something like that and keeping, listening to that throughout the week. Also, comfort food versus healthy food. When we're stressed out, when we're grieving, grief is associated with sugar cravings, and there are different types of cravings associated with different responses in our body. What's going on up here? So making sure that we're getting the nutrition that we need. It takes hormones to create thoughts, and it takes B vitamins and some healthy fats and things to create hormones, right? And so if we're out of whack and deficient in some areas, then we're going to be out of whack and deficient in other areas. Stress depletes B vitamins very quickly. Sugar is terrible for pretty much a number of things. So eating as healthy as we can without, doing the whole diet thing. 80-20 is good. Walking, some form of exercise, stretching. Again, textures. I am a toucher and a feeler. Like, I love soft. Just notice I have like my fur here. I love this. I have the crystals because I just love visually, they're beautiful to me. So involving your senses. I know when you're packing a house and you have boxes, you have that smell of boxes and it's cluttered. Okay, that's stressful and overwhelming for most people. So in this transition process, it is so important to take care of us and incorporate these, all of your senses, and learning how to care for yourself, your thoughts. If you are in a cluttered a cluttered place, or something doesn't smell right to you, or that just sounds, it is very stressful, and it can just create all of this negativity, and that doesn't help you to heal or move through transitions smoothly. It can just almost, again, send you backwards or keep you stuck, causing you to just sort of give up in a particular area, so to speak. So I'm a huge believer in incorporating all of the senses and keeping things positive. I know that you can get busy in transition, or you're distracted. You just want to check out and just like veg out on TV. Like, I'm queen of wanting to just veg out. And so sometimes it's like I really need to force myself, setting boundaries with myself, to get into my spiritual practices, or meditate, or whatever I need to do, rather than to just check out in front of the TV or veg, or be a busybody, or make myself just press through. So I do well with chunks of time, chunks of things. So finding what will help you. I'm not saying don't veg out in front of the TV at all. What I'm saying is be careful of what you're vegging out in front of, because negativity breeds negativity. So making time for yourself so that you're able to heal, to refresh, and move forward in transition in a healthy way is so important. Because why not? Like, why just like, oh, I can make it through, time is a healer. No, not necessarily. Time is a barrier, right? It'll just stuff it, bury it. It's going to come out. It's going to come out sideways, most likely, in a way that you don't want it to. So why not just heal and move forward in as healthy of a way as we can? Nobody's perfect. Sometimes, checking out for a day, that's okay. But let's not check out for a week, a month, a couple of years. Let's really learn to take care of ourselves and move through transition, and heal in the process, right? Let's do 40 days rather than 40 years, and love ourselves and come out like happier and healthier in the process. So just to sort of recap and to talk about homework, because as a coach, we give homework, and some people like homework and some people don't like homework. I know that some of you can be busy, and the last thing that you want to do is sit down and write, or something to do. This is where that personal, individualized protocol comes in. And let's take a few minutes. If you can take like maybe 15 minutes to a half an hour, and just think about, is it something that you could listen to? Could you speak it? Could you just record it? Or are you better writing something down? However you learn best, and whatever is quick for you, think about how that works best, how doing homework fits in best for you. I'm not great at sitting down and writing, because again, I'm better speaking. Planning is not my strong point. Asking me to sit down and plan something like, where are you going to be in 5 years and blah, 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 blah. I freeze. Brainstorming, I'll brainstorm like there's no tomorrow. I love to brainstorm. Speaking is easy for me. So in the homework, if I was going to talk, think through like the transition exercise that we talked about, I could just sit and either record myself as a video, pretend I'm talking to somebody, pretend I'm talking to myself, or I could record just the sound part. That is great for me, and things will just they will just begin to flow and come out easily. What healthy foods is good for me, and how can I easily incorporate that into my schedule? What about nutrition, like vitamins, things like that? What has worked for me? Maybe I don't know, and again, that would be a question you could post below. How about scents? Maybe diffusing, maybe wearing essential oils or something like that. How about texture? Creating a little space, whether it's a room or it's just an area in your house, like maybe your favorite blanket or pillows, just kind of creating the textures that you like, that you can just sort of snuggle and cozy into and just relax and just be you. And listening, like different things that you like sound. Do you like to listen to things in the morning or when? Maybe you don't have time to just sit. So again, all of this to say, there's something that will work very well for you in a way that is individual to you. So that is what we are going to focus on. Every month is getting that narrowed down so that it's specific for you, because a cookie cutter, I could tell you, okay, do this, do this, do this, and it might not work for you. And then I hear, oh yeah, I tried that and it didn't work. So if something doesn't work, then let me know and we'll figure out what does. And depending on when you joined us, I have offered the free 1-hour coaching session for charter members. If you're joining us early on, then some things, we can work out in the coaching session and really get things just zoned right in there to help you move through life, actually, because it isn't just a one-time thing. It will apply to you in various situations as you move forward throughout your life. So doing this initial part is very, very, very helpful and almost crucial to it. So finding some time to actually do this, because that's loving on you and helping you to move forward. So I will post some homework, and our next Zoom will be I'll post the date. I'm going to give us some time to sort of hone in on a few things and focus on the homework. I'm going to do weekly exercises for you. You're free to ask me questions. I'm in the group. I may or may not respond to you during the weekend because I spend time with family and I do need some downtime to recharge. But otherwise, if I'm awake, then I will respond to you as quickly, it's our timer, as quickly as I can, and get you on the right road. So any questions, comments, let me know. I'm going to post this recording in the group, so you can go back and you can watch it, you can take notes, you can listen to it. I like to not take notes the first time. And this, again, this is just how I learn and retain better. The first time, I just watch it. The second time, I'll go through and watch and maybe take notes. And then I'll go through one or maybe even more times, and I'll just have it playing in the background while I'm doing other things. And then that way I don't miss anything, right? Retention is not a high percentage, especially when you have stress and traumatic responses, things like that going on in the background. All right, I love you guys, and I will see you in the group. And again, any questions, comments, let me know, and we will talk soon. Love ya. Bye.